Welcome to Mo Show Live, everybody. Hey, I'm Morris Lilienthal. We've got a really good show and a really important show for everybody today. I thought I'd start out with just a couple of quick statistics. In 2015, there were over 1.3 million fires in the U.S., and over 3,200 people died in fires, and almost 16,000 people were injured. That's pretty alarming, and these are things oftentimes that can either be prevented from the fire itself or things that people would have been prevented from being involved in a fatality or being injured if they had a proper fire safety plan. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I think there's a lot of fire prevention that can be done to either prevent fires or fire safety plans that can prevent injuries if we just implement it. So that's what our discussion is going to be about today. I'm excited to have our guest on today, Michael Sedlacek, who is the captain of the community relations for the Madison, Alabama Fire Department. And so we're going to be talking about fire safety plans. We're going to be talking about fire safety prevention and some other good tips that Michael's going to bring to the table that you can implement at home and to try to hopefully either prevent a fire or protect you if there is a fire. So without further ado, let me formally introduce Michael. Again, our guest today is Michael Sedlacek, and I know I'm probably butchering that, Michael. I apologize. Everybody butchers my name. Again, he's the captain of community relations at the Madison Fire Department. Michael's been with the Madison Fire Rescue for over 10 years now. Michael has a degree in public safety and emergency management from Grand Canyon University. He's also a certified paramedic. And I think is a lot of part of what Michael does on a day in and out basis is community outreach like what he's doing today. And that's speaking to communities, speaking to groups, speaking to schools, and talking about fire safety and fire safety prevention. And to give you some perspective, folks that aren't from around here, the city of Madison's about 50,000 residents. We have 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, 7 elementary schools, and it's probably the fastest growing city in Alabama. So Michael has a lot on his plate. Michael, thanks for your time today, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. And so Michael was kind enough to come on today and talk about these kind of things. So if you've got questions, if you're watching the show live here, just chime in, let us know you're watching, say hello. If you've got questions about fire safety prevention, if you've got questions about smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, so forth and so on, let us know. I'll be monitoring the feed here and get those questions in. If you're one of the many people that will be watching the replay, if you've got questions, please put it in the comments below. We'll be monitoring the feed after the video. The show goes off live, and we'll try to get back with you and answer any questions or point you to some resources that can help. So, Michael, before we dive right into the meat of everything with fire safety, I got to ask, because every kid dreams of being a firefighter. Halloween is going to be next week. And despite all the newfangled costumes and characters I bet firefighter is still one of the best sold costumes out there. Why'd you become a firefighter?
That's a great question. We've been in the schools for the last few weeks doing Safe House with the kids, and I always ask the kids what they're going to be for Halloween, and they always give me a myriad of answers, and I always say, well, I'm going to be a firefighter. Well, for me, that's really true because I wanted to be a firefighter since I was a kid. I was a little boy in the fire truck, and the firefighters waved at me, and that was that moment where I was like, man, I want to do that because that's special to me. So I followed it all the way through high school and into college and started volunteering and ended up here now. So it's been a great journey. It's been a good ride and a great experience.
And have you been with Madison Fire Rescue the whole time, Michael, since you got out of college?
Professionally, yes. I started volunteering at Monrovia Volunteer Fire Department. Chief Sean Terry was the guy at the time. He was one guy that really helped shape my career and encouraged me to go to EMT school, which then in turn I started working at HIMSI as an EMT and decided to go to paramedic school, and I wanted to work at Madison. So I just kept pushing and ended up here. So it's been great.
Well, that's awesome, and I know that's something that a lot of kids do. And I remember my son, as we were just talking before we started, is a third grader, and you guys were doing some projects with the third grade out in Madison and doing. But I can remember when Wyatt was 4 or 5, several times, or even younger, 2 or 3, being out at a restaurant one time and seeing the fire department pull up just to get food or something at a fast food restaurant. But we had to run over, and the guys were always so nice to take in little kids and take pictures and show them around the truck. So thank you for your service, and thank you guys for always being there for the kids that want to take those pictures and do this.
Absolutely,
so awesome.
Absolutely.
So what I wanted to start with, and I think one of the most important things, at least as a parent and as a homeowner, and from a family perspective, talk to us a little bit about fire safety from the point of home fire safety escape plans. Talk to us about what is a fire escape plan at the house, and why do we need to have one, and some of the major key factors that we need to look at when we're putting this in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, a homescape plan is pretty self-explanatory, but the main piece is the conversational piece. Parents having the conversation with the kids of, hey, if you're in your room or we're in the living room or in the kitchen and the smoke alarm goes off and there is a fire in our house, this is how we're going to get out. And you're kind of creating an escape plan for your house, just like you would see like on a commercial building in your place of work or business, where it just tells you where the exits are. It gives you all that pertinent information. But talking about it with your kids is so important. Parents having those conversations are things that definitely can save lives. And then one of the other pivotal pieces is having a meeting place. Definitely having a meeting place where you and your family are able to gather after they've exited the home safely. That's really important. I know for years everybody said, "Yeah, go to the mailbox, go to the mailbox, go to the mailbox." Well, the thing is that the mailbox is always right next to the road, right? And now if you've got fire trucks coming up and everybody's gathered right by the mailbox, and if you have small children, we just want to make sure they're being safe. So, we're trying to, push now to move them back away from the mailbox and the road, like maybe go to the neighbor's house, right? Go to the neighbor's house, call 911 from the neighbor's house if your phone is not with you. Go to the fence, the tree, somewhere that's away from the road. That way everybody's being safe. But the main thing is just having a plan. That's it. Is having the plan, having the conversation with your kids.
Yeah. And so, that plan, a couple of things that I was kind of looking at, kind of in prepping for today's show and speaking to my son who's getting this training from you guys out in Madison schools, he's teaching me, is, a couple of things that I wanted to ask you specifics about. What if you've got a situation, Michael, where you have small children, toddlers or infants in there? Did you as a parent have a plan in place that how you're going to get to that child in the case of an emergency or fire, and what, and depending on the circumstances, what should you do depending upon the type of fire and how to get that child out of his or her room?
Absolutely. As a parent, I'm a parent also. I have three kids, and I know for me, I think there's nothing that I wouldn't do to make sure that my kids were safe. And that's a tough question, because it tugged at your heartstrings. And as a parent, it's just one of those things where we always have our kids around us, right? Especially when they're young. If you have a 2-year-old toddler, so on and so forth, we know they're making noise, and we always know, hey, if it's quiet, there's a problem. We got to go figure something out, right? So, but just having a general awareness of where your children are, and you, especially being the parent, has to know the escape plan in its entirety and all the intricacies. So if I go get my child out of their bedroom because there's a fire in my house, I also need to know how to get out of that window, right? We want to have two ways out of each room that we're in. And if I had to go to the back of the house or the basement or upstairs to get my child, then I know I'm going to be taking a risk that we both may not make it out. Knowing the exits of every story, of every room in your house, are things that could definitely save your life and be the difference for that child in the future.
That's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that, just saying that, the escape room, you might think, out of your bedroom, but what if you were in your child's bedroom? And that brings to another question that I was wondering about, because, especially, a lot of times, subdivisions are getting tighter and tighter,
Hmm.
homes are getting taller and taller. And so a lot of times people, have homes that have bedrooms on the second and third floor. You guys recommend like an escape ladder if they can't get out the bedroom and down the stairs, or what's kind of the safest way? What's kind of the second escape route out of there, typically for a second or third bedroom?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this with some of the kids yesterday in Madison City Schools when I was in the classroom yesterday, and that's a really solid question. Is so having an escape ladder. It's for those of you who don't know, it's a piece of equipment that you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. It's got metal rungs on it with chains that go down the entire side of the ladder, so you can hook it on the inside of your windowsill and let it fall down towards the ground. If you have a two-story house, it should reach the ground or at least be very, very close to the ground. If you're on a three-story house and you had a child that you were comfortable with them using it, and you said, hey, look, you can crawl down, you can climb down, but the drop might be 6 or 7 feet. I mean, that's, to me, I'm a life over limb person. So,
Right.
hey, if you need to drop, and that might be just a monkey bar drop for a kid these days, right? They're out in the playground having a good time. They're used to that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, walking them through that, practicing your home fire escape drills is also a really important thing too. Not just talking about it, but actually practicing it,
Right.
running through it, making sure the kids can open windows. I know a big thing is, we like to paint. We all love to paint the house, right? Not really, because I hate painting. But when we paint the house and we paint the windows, do we ever paint the windows shut? Right? Do our kids know how to open the windows? Can they open the windows? Because I know in some of the houses that I've lived, I've had to open the windows like really forcibly because they've been painted shut. And if I hadn't thought about that ahead of time and been proactive in that approach, that could have ended badly if that was not something that was thought about ahead of time. So making
That's a
sure
great,
they can do that.
yeah, that's a really great point. To be honest, I hadn't thought about that. Real quick, I want to say hello to several people watching right now. We've got a bunch of people watching. Bernard Nomberg down in Birmingham, Nick Rishwain all the way out in California, Annika Gudlotsky, Dennis Sanders here in Madison, and several others. Thank you guys for joining. If you're getting information out of here that's useful, please share the video out for others. One of the things, Michael, that really struck me that you were mentioning to me about a new plan and some statistics and data that you guys have learned through some research that's being done about closing doors in bedrooms and how that can actually prevent fires from starting and spreading. Talk to us and share with the audience a little bit about what the importance of closing bedroom doors is.
Yeah, when you close doors, you definitely are giving yourself a serious lifeline. As parents, we bring baby home from the hospital, right? The first few weeks, maybe they're in the bassinet next to our bed, until we kind of get a rhythm going, and then we eventually transition them to their own room.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes, and when we transfer them to their own room, hopefully, then we still want to be good parents in our mind, right? So we leave the door open because we don't know, man, when we hear that mommy cry, or that daddy cry, we want to be able to get up and go and attend to our kids.
Right.
But what we end up doing is when we leave our doors open so that we can hear, we actually are opening up a pathway into our bedroom, our sleeping area. So if there were a fire in our house at night, then all those fumes, those noxious fumes, are able to go directly into our room. And there's a ton of research out there on this. And I'll send you a link that you can post here after the show is done directly on that. But a lot of times, some fire fatalities, people just never wake up. They're found in their beds because the smoke overcame them in their sleep, and there was no chance. They never even had an opportunity to get out of their house. And some just really, there's a good video out there right now that I'll send you as well. And Underwriters Laboratory did a study. They took two identical rooms. They lit a fire in this fictitious house. They closed the door in one room and left one open. They put cameras in each room and they lit the fire. And in the room that had the door closed, it looked like nothing ever happened whatsoever. Like the room was livable. Like you could literally just move right on in and you'd invite your friend to come stay in that spare bedroom. Like it was perfect. The other room that had the door open, was just completely just demolished. The heat started melting stuff. There was soot and black stuff all over the walls. Like that's not survivable in that instance, if you're asleep. So just great stuff that's out there on that.
Yeah, folks, if you get nothing else out of this interview today, and that is to close the bedroom doors when you go to bed. And that is just, it doesn't cost us anything. And as cheap as technology is now, that if you want to be able to hear your baby cry or scream at night and so you can get up and check on him or her, that's certainly understandable. But you can get these nanny cams for next to nothing now. So close that bedroom door and just get a monitor of some type or a camera in there, a little cheap camera. You can hear that same scream or cry or make sure they're sleeping okay, but you can do it safely with that door closed.
Absolutely.
Michael, that's great. I really think that's worth the whole show right there. Folks, if you're just joining us, our guest today on the Mo Show Live is Captain of Community Relations for the Madison Fire Department, Michael Sedlacek. And we're talking about fire safety. We were just talking about home fire safety plans and closing the bedroom doors when you go to bed. And the next big topic that I want to talk about, Michael, and get you to hit on is smoke detectors. Talk to us a little bit about, what we need to know, smoke detector 101 in terms of installation and maintenance and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. First things first, with our batteries, right? Time change is coming, right? So if you have working smoke alarms and you know that you have them, changing batteries at the time change, it's just an easy time to remember it, right? Because it's a big event for us. You either lose an hour of sleep or you gain an hour of sleep. So it's just one of those things where I can say, hey, let me change my smoke alarm batteries. They're they're inexpensive. Most of the smoke alarms that we see now are 9 volt, some are AA. But then the other big push that we're seeing is a 10-year sealed smoke alarm. And that's a worry-free alarm that you're able to put in and never have to worry about changing a battery again, right?
Okay.
It's got just pretty much like an expiration date where you can put it on your calendar and just know, hey, 10 years from now, that's a long ways out, right? But sometimes we do have our calendars that go out that long if we're big planners. You just know, hey, I need to do that. So number one, we want to test our smoke alarms once a month. And if you look right here on here, there's a button. It says push to test. And all you have to do is just go and just push it. And if you get your alarm, you know it's working. And that's just one of those things where even though we have technology, we still want to test it to be sure that it's working. Okay. So that's one. Number two is actually just having them, period. I was talking to a little girl yesterday in the school. She says, well, my daddy, he took the smoke alarm down because it wasn't working anymore and he forgot to get another one. Well, that's just part of it. We don't think that fire can happen to us. That's just part of it. It doesn't really matter if it's fire or not. I'm not going to be the one that's going to have that happen to me. And a lot of times that leads to complacency, no matter what it is. And just saying, hey, I need to have smoke alarms because it's a really inexpensive thing. You can get a smoke alarm for $20. I mean, it's cheap. I mean, for a peace of mind, for me, it's just really, really important. Now, I do understand that not everybody can afford a smoke alarm because some people have to choose between medications, have to choose between books for their kids for school or for clothes, and that's just not very high on that priority list. And because of that, a lot of fire departments do provide and install smoke alarms as well because that's our main thing is we want you to be safe. We're firefighters. We want to prevent this from happening as well. It's not just about that primary response, about being preemptive and proactive in this as well. So making sure that you have smoke alarms is just a huge, huge benefit. The other thing is that smoke alarm placement. We want one inside of every bedroom and then outside of every bedroom as well. And then you also want one in like major congregational areas in your house, like maybe your den or your living room. Now the kitchen. Everybody well, I need to have one in the kitchen because that's where the majority of cooking fires are or the majority of fires are is in the kitchen. Well, what we see happens is that in major fires, people end up taking the smoke alarm down for some reason beforehand. So maybe my smoke alarm is too close to my stove, too close into my kitchen. And it's Thanksgiving time, right? Thanksgiving's coming up, and now I'm doing a lot of cooking, a ton of cooking, and it may just get a little warm, a little smoky in the kitchen, just part of just a normal day. The smoke alarm goes off 3 or 4 times. I'm annoyed with it, so I remove it from the ceiling or take the batteries out. Right. Now, how many of us remember to put it back or remember to put the batteries back in? So if our placement was correct and thought about ahead of time to make sure that our placement, we want it at least 10 feet from the kitchen. That way it's not going to be a nuisance for us, right? Because if it's a nuisance, then it's not really helping us. We always want to teach the kids that smoke alarms are your friends. They're trying to help you, right? But we also have to make sure that every friend has its place where it needs to be in your life. And smoke alarms are also that same principle. We want to put a smoke alarm where it needs to be so it can properly protect us.
Yeah, that's great feedback in terms of placement and just having them and changing the batteries. And one of the things that was really interesting, I was kind of prepping a little bit for the show, Michael, and I read a statistic and did something along the lines that smoke alarms reduce the chance of dying in a fire by nearly 50%.
Absolutely.
So, if that statistic is close to being accurate from what I read on, I think it was one of the fire websites, or that, that's something you just get, for just a few dollars, you can really cut your chances of dying in a fire by half. That's tremendous. One of the other things that I thought was really interesting that I saw that I thought I'd point out and get your feedback on, let you chime in real quick, was when you do test the smoke alarms is to make sure your younger children know what the smoke alarm sound is.
Absolutely.
Because I've never thought about that if you're a 6, 7-year-old child and you've never been around when the smoke alarm goes off, the residential smoke alarm, you may not know what that sound is. So as to make sure that when, you test it, that your children are around some of those times to know what that is, to recognize, then that kicks in that instinct of that fire safety escape plan and what to do next.
Absolutely. And I think we could even do one better. And part of that family conversational piece of building your home escape plan and fire safety, how about you include your kids in the testing?
Yeah.
Hey, let me hold you up really quick because it's right there. How about you push that button? It's going to be loud, going to make noise, but
Yeah.
that's a good noise. When it makes a noise, it's going to be a good noise because it lets us know it's working. Now, any
Yeah.
other time that you hear this noise, besides right now, this is what we need to do. We are going to go into our home escape plan, right? And then
Yeah.
we're gonna exit. Or if you got older kids, a lot of times it's an investigation mode with some of the older kids. Like if you've got a 14-year-old or 12-year-old, 10-year-old, depending on how mature they are for you, and that's something that a parent would know. But
Right.
hey, if the smoke alarm goes off, we have to figure out what's going on because sometimes it could just be, man, I left it on the stove. Let me just turn it off really quick. Sometimes it could be an actual fire, but to actually know what's going on, and that way we can activate that plan appropriately.
Yeah. Great feedback. I got a question that I think a lot of the audience members want to know about. Nick Swain, what do we need to know about carbon monoxide and carbon monoxide alarms? Can you kind of give us a one-on-one on that real quick, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So carbon monoxide is one of those, it's colorless and odorless, and it's one of those things it can be like a silent killer, right? And having a carbon monoxide alarm is really, really important. Who needs one? Well, technically, sure, everybody should need one, right? Just to be sure, but the people who would definitely need to take some measures on that are people that have gas appliances, because if you've got a fireplace or a water heater or a kitchen stove in the kitchen, those are the times we really need to have that, and they need to be placed in a low area because carbon monoxide will congregate closer to the floor. So that's just a thought process, is that as you're purchasing alarms now, what they have done is what a lot of smoke alarm companies are doing is creating dual alarms. So you have a smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide alarm that goes on the ceiling when carbon monoxide gathers at the floor level. So sometimes, we may be treating it a little bit backwards, right? So making sure that you have an independent alarm that's going to be specifically placed where it needs to be, near sleeping areas and so on and so forth, and near your appliances that are powered by gas.
Yeah, that's good feedback, and it's really good to know that sometimes, two for one, it can be a good thing, but sometimes it may not be the best use of that device there. So that's good feedback, folks. If you're watching and you need a carbon monoxide alarm, you think because you've got gas appliances, or if you just want to take that extra precaution, if you can afford that extra spend, then make sure you have one that's down close to the floor where Michael said that the gas is going to accumulate first. One of the things I wanted to kind of get you just real quick was to kind of talk to us about some of the top 2-3 things that you guys see are causing house fires and homes, and fire safety tips that we could to prevent those things at home. Cooking, heaters, I know right now is a big issue. It's becoming winter time and people are breaking out, space heaters and gas heaters. And I know there's probably some issues. You guys see a lot of issues with lighters and candles and matches. Can you talk a little bit about some of those kind of top issues that you see and ways to quickly resolve them?
Yeah, absolutely. So statistically, we see a ton of cooking related fires, and that's one of the things that is preventable. Teaching people to how to properly handle a cooking related fire are things that definitely can save some energy, some time, resources, and pain potentially if there was to be an injury because of that. So number one is that if you say you just have a standard grease fire, right? You're cooking some French fries or whatever it could be, and you have some kind of fire that takes place in the pot where you doorbell rang and I ran to check to see what happened. I got distracted by the homework request or something else happened, right? I come back to my kitchen and my pot's on fire. What do I need to do? Well, first off, we need to remove the heat source from that, right? There's several things that have to happen for fire to take place. And if we remove it from the heat source, that's one of those things. Now, does that mean I need to pick it up with my hand or a pot? No. How about we just turn the eye off? That's a good step, right? How about we take the lid and put the lid on top of it, something on top of it that's not flammable, a cookie sheet if I don't have a lid, or a larger lid even than what the pot would hold, as long as it's removing it from or taking that oxygen out of that fire, which then also helps put that out. We've seen calls where people have picked them up and tried to take it out, and you can look on the floor, on the wood floor, and see where they've dropped things and spilled things, and they've got burns on their hands or on their clothes or their feet because they tried to pick it up and take it out of the house. Just some simple things to make sure that they're being safe there. In terms of the seasons, seasonally we do see, every now and then we see some of the turkey fryer related fires. Just making sure you're being safe, right? You follow the proper procedures when you're doing that, and don't do it on a deck. It's one of those things where I've got a wood deck, and then if this thing boils over, I'm on a flammable surface, right? Doing it away from the house, in the driveway. Having something nearby that can help me put it out, like a fire extinguisher, right? And then also Christmas time. Last year we did a Christmas tree burn, and Lowe's was a great sponsor for us on that. Lowe's in Madison. Actually, all the Lowe's in the area got banded together, and they all gave materials, and we got the guys out there at the fire station. And we've got some of the best guys. I love working with our guys at Madison. They're just awesome. We built 2 different rooms, and we got 2 different Christmas trees donated. One was wet, one was dry, and we lit those rooms off. And those Christmas trees, just went up, right? And it took a little bit longer for the one that was wet to actually ignite, but it eventually did. And the one that was dry, it was like I lit a candle off. Like it was unbelievable in how fast it went off. The whole room was just up in flames. Making sure that we water our Christmas trees after that, or after we have them, is really important as well.
Well, speaking of those things, and you kind of touched on this in passing there, and I wanted to get your feedback on this, is, do you guys recommend having like a home fire extinguisher, and are there certain brands or types of fire extinguishers that we should have, and then kind of what's fire extinguisher use and safety 101 when we're using them?
Absolutely. We always have to consider, well, where are we going to have a flammable danger in our home? One of those areas is our kitchen, right? So having one in the kitchen, I know some people keep them underneath the sink, right? Where's another area where we may have some issue? And sometimes that's the laundry room, right? Because we've got a whole lot of lint going on in our dryer area, and sometimes those things just get too hot and you have some kind of spark, and you've got hyper dry material like that, it's going to ignite. So a couple areas, maybe in the garage if you tinker a lot, right? It's a good place to have it. Now, where can I get one? Well, they sell them in any major chain store for the most part. Walmart carries them, Lowe's, Home Depot, they carry fire extinguishers. And there's a gauge that's on the fire extinguisher, and it's got a little arrow. And one says, and one lets you know it needs to be recharged. One says it's got a little green area, and as long as that little area is within that green area, or that little arrow is within that green area, then that tells you that there's enough pressure. And if it's over, then it should also tell you as well. And a lot of the basic home fire extinguishers that you purchase don't require a yearly inspection by a company. They have more of an expiration date on them, where like the manufacturer will tell you, hey, this will be good until for 2 years or for 3 years, and that's very manufacturer specific as well. So as long as you have one, that's really, really important. Now, how do I use one? Well, we have a little acronym. We call it PASS, right? Pull, that's P. Aim, right? We're going to aim at the base of the fire, all right? And then I'm squeezing, and then I'm sweeping. So I am squeezing that little trigger, that little handle, and I've got, I just aim it at the fire, and I'm sweeping right over the fire, okay? And then after that point, if it does not go out, I need to go ahead and make sure I'm exiting that environment, okay? Or making sure that I'm safe as well, and activating, your home escape plan should have already been activated if you choose to do that.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good information, and so when you're going out and if you're purchasing these smoke detectors, or you're purchasing, these carbon monoxide alarms, you may want to look at, one of the big box stores, purchasing a small fire extinguisher or two for various parts of your home. The last thing I wanted to touch on here before we wrapped up, Michael, and I appreciate your time today, was something that we're honored to have you guys come out Friday to work with our firm on this, and that's CPR certification and getting CPR trained. Talk to us a little bit about what the requirements are now, what the general CPR certification is, why that's so important for fire safety and just health safety in general.
Absolutely. CPR certification as a whole is one thing it is important. It gives you a lot of good information in terms of just general personal safety, as well as it just kind of, I feel like it makes you more aware of those that are around you. A lot of times we get really caught up with our cell phones, right? We're always on our cell phones, or we're distracted, and we don't pay attention to a lot of people that are around. And a lot of times, when we have a sudden cardiac arrest, it's really, it's a spur of the moment because we're not expecting it, because it's a normal person like you and me who we go to the gym. That's where I met you, at the gym. We go to the gym. We're active people. We try to eat right and try to keep our lives together. And then something happens, something that we don't have control over happens in our body, and we have a sudden cardiac arrest. And if nobody pays attention to that, then that definitely reduces our chances of survival. So we do our best to try to teach as many people CPR. And with Madison Fire, we're in our school systems. We teach churches, Boy Scout groups, mom groups. We do classes once a month on Saturdays, the second Saturday every month at our Station 1. And we really are pushing CPR, CPR, CPR. Now, here's the thing. People get turned off a lot by, mouth to mouth. Right? They always get turned off by that. And whenever I teach a class, I always ask, well, who's comfortable? If I told you every time that you do CPR, you'd have to do mouth to mouth. And even with the barrier device, everybody, the hands are not going up. But then when we talk about doing compression only CPR as a lay individual, they're much more happy with that, because it's one thing that allows them to still maintain a little bit of distance, I feel, and it makes them more comfortable with doing it. And research is saying that as long as we get down and we're doing quality CPR and we're doing quality compressions, that the person's chance of survival is greatly increased. I know for the national statistics for cardiac arrest survivability is 10%, and that's really, really low, at least in my opinion. But then one thing that we can do to mitigate that is we've got tools. So we can learn CPR. We can take those classes. We can be aware of others. And we have some other tools in Madison County. For those who are not aware, we have an app called PulsePoint. PulsePoint's an app. It's a free app that you can download from the App Store or the Google Play Store. And it's a cardiac arrest notification app. And as long as the cardiac arrest takes place in a public place, I'm going to get a notification on my phone if I'm within a quarter mile of that call. So you being in your office right here, if someone were to go down on the sidewalk, it's a public place on the square, and if somebody were to go down in cardiac arrest there, and somebody calls 911 and says, hey, somebody is in cardiac arrest, you're going to get a notification because you're within a quarter mile that says somebody needs CPR right here. It's going to give you the address.
Wow.
And as a trained CPR provider, you now have an opportunity to go and really impact someone's life potentially. Now, if it's their time, then it's just their time, but it's one of those things where we can do the best that we can to make sure that is not the case.
What's the name of that app again, Michael?
PulsePoint.
All right, well, folks, we're gonna put that in the comments below after the show. And and Michael, I think you told me in preparation for us, doing the CPR training here at our office on Friday, it's a give or take 2-hour class just to get CPR trained for most people. So it's not a whole day or that big of a time investment, and the minimal cost to get someone like Michael or in the American Red Cross. There's a lot of entities that do CPR training and certification stuff. So I would strongly encourage you to do that. It's something that we're passionate about here at the office, and that's why we're going to be getting our office trained on it. Michael, if people want to get in touch with you or other people at the fire department here in Madison, and other departments do a lot of community outreach just like your department does, what can they do to catch up with you to maybe come speak to a group or talk to them about fire safety like you've done today?
Yeah, absolutely. My office number that you're more than welcome to call anytime is 256-772-2889. Or you can email me, and I'll put a link to it because it's last name's a little bit long, so we'll put a link to it. But email me, call me, please. We'll be more than happy to make sure if there's an idea or there's a group that you want somebody to come and talk about it, something safety related. We can talk something about pool safety. Who knows, right? It could be anything. If it's safety related, we'll come and work with you, and if we don't do it, then we'll make sure we put you in contact with the right person who can do it for you.
Michael, again, thank you, and thank all the members of the fire department here in Madison and where else for what you do for a living to make our communities a safer place. And folks, we've really shared some great information today, from smoke detector safety to feedback on home fire safety plans to carbon monoxide alarm safety. And I really thought that was just a great tip about closing those bedroom doors, so that really increases the survivability of people in each bedroom. So take these tips, implement them into your home, share this video out so we can get this knowledge out there and hopefully save some lives out there. Michael, again, thank you so much for your time and your service. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.